Woodhouse, how lovely. My cold is nearly better. Oh, I do hope you had a very happy Christmas.
Very pleasant, thank you, Harriet.
Oh, and thank you for your gift, Miss Woodhouse.
And thank you for yours.
I've nearly finished reading it.
I have some extremely unpleasant news to impart, and I scarcely know how to begin.
Bad news, Miss Woodhouse?
Yes, Harriet, I'm afraid so. And it concerns Mr. Elton. It was after Mrs. Weston's party on
Miss
Christmas
Woodhouse,
Eve.
he is not ill. Say he is not ill.
No, Harriet, he is perfectly well. But I feel I have been grossly deceived in him. Grossly deceived.
Mr. Elton? Miss Woodhouse?
Harriet, I do not know how to say this, but the marked partiality we both assumed his manner bore to you was apparently intended to be directed at myself.
You, Miss Woodhouse? And you mean he never...
Poor Harriet, I suffer for you, truly I do.
But what did he say? What did he do?
Well, Harriet, I have no intention of recounting the scene. Sufficient to say that his behaviour in the carriage coming home was both vulgar and offensive in the extreme.
Mr. Elton?
Yes, Harriet, Mr. Elton. Oh, poor Harriet. You have every reason to be distressed, but I blame myself very largely. These last few wretched days I have scarcely known how to face the thought of telling you.
Oh, Miss Woodhouse, you have nothing in the world to reproach yourself with, nothing.
Dear Harriet, I only wish I had half your good nature and sweet temper.
The fault was all mine. It was foolish of me ever to persuade myself that a man in Mr. Elton's position could ever think of such a person as myself.
Yes. Well, I will not argue with you, Harriet, because I do not wish to speak of this wretched business ever again.
No, Miss Woodhouse.
We must put it quite behind us.
Yes, Miss Woodhouse.
We must present a brave face to the world, Harriet. Now that Christmas is over, we must go out and about again, you and I, now that your cold is so much better.
Yes, Miss Woodhouse.
Nobody knows anything of this ridiculous and distressing affair but you, myself, and the person concerned. And he at least has had the decency to go away.
Oh, Mr. Elton gone away? Where?
To Bath, so Miss Bates says, and she is generally well informed upon all such matters. I must say I'm agreeably surprised that he should show such delicacy. Oh, Harriet.
Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Woodhouse. I just can't seem to help it. He was so handsome.
Whether it was the gruel, which was a little thicker than usual, so unlike cook, she's most scrupulous as a rule, or whether it was the toast, I do not know, but I heard the church clock strike every quarter up to 5 o'clock.
Emma!
Mr. Knightley.
You're looking exceedingly smart.
I did not know you were here.
He came to bring us some rather melancholy news, I'm afraid, my dear.
Oh, you may consider it melancholy, Emma. I must confess it doesn't greatly disturb me or fill me with astonishment. It's merely that Mr. Weston's son has once again postponed his visit.
Oh, no. Poor Mrs. Weston, how very distressing for her.
Emma, my dear child, you are not going out. It would be most unwise.
Yes, Papa, I am. Now that Christmas is behind us, I have a number of calls I am obliged to make.
Dear Emma, always so ready to wear herself out in the service of others.
Excuse me, sir. Really, I am deeply sorry for Mr. and Mrs. Weston. They should be put about in this manner and made to look foolish into the bargain.
I have no doubt Mr. Churchill has his reasons for the alteration, but I have often thought that Mrs. Churchill must be a very exacting guardian.
Very likely indeed she's at fault. Even so, I'm quite sure that if he had been so anxious to see his father, he could well have contrived it between September and January.
Yorkshire is some considerable distance.
Well, distance did not prevent him holidaying in Weymouth last summer. No, Emma, it will not do. A man who thought rightly would simply say, my father has recently married again, it is my duty to pay him a visit, and that would be an end of it.
A fine show of gratitude to the aunt who has had the goodness to bring him up. Really, Mr. Knightley, I see you are quite determined to think ill of him.
Me? Certainly not. I should be as ready to acknowledge his merits as anybody, but I hear of none. Only that he's well-grown and good-looking and has smooth, plausible manners.
Oh, well, if he has nothing but that to recommend him, he will still be a treasure in Highbury. We do not often get the opportunity to look upon fine, agreeable young men. Can you not imagine, Mr. Knightley, what a sensation his coming will bring? There will be but one topic of conversation over the parishes of Highbury and Donwell, one object of curiosity, Mr. Frank Churchill.
You'll have to excuse me for being so overpowered, I'm afraid. If I find him agreeable to talk to, I shall be glad enough of his acquaintance. But if he's merely a chattering coxcomb, then he shan't occupy much of my time or thoughts.
My idea of him is that he will be able to adapt his conversation to suit everybody. To you, he will talk of farming, and to me of music and drawing and so on.
What? Only 3 and 20, and already the practiced drawing-room politician. Oh, my dear Emma, your own good sense would not tolerate such a puppy for 5 minutes.
I will speak no more about him, Mr. Knightley. We are both prejudiced.
Prejudiced? I'm not prejudiced.
No. Well, I am. In his favour. My love of dear Mr. and Mrs. Weston make it so, and I am not ashamed of it. And now, if you will forgive me, Mr. Knightley. I thought we would call first upon Miss Bates and her mother.
Yes, Miss Woodhouse.
But I must warn you that a certain person's name is bound to crop up in the course of conversation. Oh, this must be painful to you, I know, but you must learn to disguise your feelings.
I will do my best, Miss Woodhouse.
I'm sure you will. And at least you will not have to listen too attentively to Miss Bates.
No, Miss Woodhouse.
And we should be spared her letter from the all-too-perfect Miss Fairfax, because her day for writing is generally a Friday, I believe.
Yes, Miss Woodhouse.
Oh, come now, Harriet. Let me see your smile once again. Miss Woodhouse and Miss Smith. Goodness, what a pleasant surprise. Come in. Come in.
Thank you, Miss Bates. We will not stay a moment.
Oh, sit down, won't you?
This is
Harriet's
Smith.
first visit since being unwell before Christmas.
Oh, let me get you a little glass of something. Mother, Miss Woodhouse has come to see you. Is that not kind of her? I heard the knock, and I thought, now, who can this be? This time of the day cannot be Mr. Elton, because he's still away at Bath, and enjoying a great round of social visits, according to Mrs. Cole. But I'm so glad it was you, Miss Woodhouse, because we have a visitor.
A visitor, Miss Bates?
Yes. Can you not guess who? My niece, Jane.
Jane Fairfax is here now.
Yes, she arrived yesterday, and is to stay with us for some time, I'm happy to say. She's upstairs in her room at this very moment.
Oh, then please do not let us disturb you, Miss Bates.
Patty, dear. Patty, run upstairs to Miss Jane's room and tell her that Miss Woodhouse has called with the express hope of finding her in. Oh, it's so kind of you, Miss Woodhouse. She'll be delighted, I know. Miss Woodhouse and my niece are just of an age and grew up together, eh, Miss Woodhouse?
Yes,
you
but
should
it's
see these two entering a ballroom together. Oh, two such handsome girls it would be hard to find.
Please, Miss Bates.
Oh, that is the truth, Miss, whatever you may say. Oh, but poor Jane, she is not strong. No, she lost both her parents at an early age and has been brought up by a Colonel and Mrs. Campbell. Oh, very nice people. Quite gentlefolk, of course. The poor child, she's nothing of her own. And now, owing to her circumstances, she will have to find herself some sort of employment. Before she comes down, I must tell you, she's received an excellent offer.
An offer, Miss Bates?
Yes, a Mr. and Mrs. Dixon, a married couple she met whilst on holiday at Weymouth. Oh, a very elegant, well-connected couple, I believe. They were so taken with Jane that the gentleman has written positively insisting that she join their household to teach the two young children music. There. Is that not a fine offer?
Well, I'm sure Miss Fairfax must be very pleased, but is it not a little unusual for the gentleman to make the arrangement?
Oh, well, the Dixons are very highly thought of, I believe. But you must get Jane to tell you all about it herself.
Yes, well, I'm very much afraid if she does not come down in one moment, Miss
Ah,
Bates.
there you are, dear Jane. Look who is here. I've come especially to see you.
Good morning, Miss Fairfax.
Good morning. Oh, Miss Smith, this is my niece, Miss Fairfax.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Jane, you will want to sit by Miss Woodhouse, I know, dear. You'll forgive these two, won't you, Miss Smith? But you see how it is, I'm sure.
We will not stay for more than one moment. I am sure you must still be very fatigued after your journey.
Yes, a little.
But you had good weather for it, I hope.
Oh, yes, thank you. Very fair.
Good. I am so glad. Travelling at this time of the year can be so irksome, I always think. Do not you?
Yes, very. My only sorrow is I no longer have an instrument for her to play upon. She has the most delicate touch, has she not, Mother? I was saying what a pity it is we no longer have our piano for Jane to play upon. In our old home, of course, things were quite different, Miss Smith. You understand quite
Miss Bates, please feel free to bring Miss Fairfax around at any time to use our instrument.
Oh, Miss Woodhouse, how generous, how kind, eh, Jane?
Thank you. Why not all come on Tuesday evening, and then Miss Fairfax can play to her heart's content and entertain us all at the same time? I hope you will come, Harriet.
I would love to, Miss Woodhouse. Thank you, Miss Woodhouse. What a delightful suggestion, eh, Jane? How can I thank you?
Your aunt tells me you are about to take up a teaching post, but I do hope you will not be leaving us too soon.
Well, I'm afraid my future plans are still extremely uncertain.
Oh, but Jane, dear, in your last letter you said that the offer was now definite and you'd almost decided upon acceptance. Oh, you did, dear. Really, you did. Now I have the letter here somewhere. Just a moment,
Aunt,
dear.
what I wrote you in my letter was intended to be in confidence.
Oh, my dear, I am so sorry. Oh, Jane, love, I do apologize if I've said anything unwise, but it seems such a fine, generous offer.
Aunt.
And from people of such standing, too. Well, I said to Mother, they must be gentlefolk to have made dear Jane such a remarkably generous an offer. Did I not, Mother?
Aunt, please.
Miss Bates, I think we should be going. I promised Harriet would not be late home. Oh, Miss Woodhouse, must you go? So we shall see you on Tuesday night, Miss Bates, Miss Fairfax. Jane, dear, what is it? What have I done?
Nothing, Aunt.
Thank you, Williams.
Yes, a very pleasant evening, I thought, Emma. Extremely pleasant.
Thank you, Mr. Knightley. I am most happy you approved on this occasion.
Oh, thank you, my dear.
Miss Fairfax played exceptionally well, I thought.
Exceptionally well.
But you do not find her sympathetic, is that right?
I did not say so.
My dear Emma, you have no need to.
If you want the truth, I find her reserved.
Yes, I always told you that she was. No doubt it arises from her circumstance. A natural diffidence, which I'm sure you will overcome.
You find her diffident. I do not see it.
But I saw you holding quite a long conversation with her last night, did I not?
Oh, yes, I asked her all about her holiday in Weymouth and her plans for the future.
Well,
I was amused to find how little information I obtained.
I'm disappointed.
But I grant you, she is an extremely elegant creature. One cannot take one's eyes off her. And I do pity her circumstances from my heart.
Yes, it's most unfortunate that their circumstances should be so confined. One wishes one could do more.
Father?
Poor old Mrs. Bates. She was quite a gentlewoman by birth, you know. Oh, quite.
But I did not come here to discuss last night's entertainment, admirable though I thought it was. I have an item of...
Dear, remember to send them a hind quarter of our own pork.
I have already done so, Papa.
Emma, I have an item of news which I fancy might be of special interest to you.
Mr. Knightley, since when have you become a bearer of gossip?
Well, if you do not wish to hear my information...
Oh, I said nothing of that.
Well, Mr. Cole...
Make sure that they cut it into steaks, nicely fried, mind, without too much grease.
Yes, Papa.
Do not on any account let them roasted. Do you hear me, Emma? Hartfield pork is not rich, but it's still pork. And no young or delicate stomach can digest it roasted.
Of course, Papa. Now, Mr. Knightley, what is this news of yours that will interest me so much?
I met Mr. Cole.
Convenient. Only we were just passing by. Ah, Mr. Woodhouse, how are you this morning?
Fairfax?
No, please don't get up. Miss Woodhouse,
Miss
Mr.
Bates?
Knightley. Oh, Miss Woodhouse, how can I thank you? I'm quite overwhelmed. Such a beautiful hind quarter of pork. I said to Jane, well, that must have come from Hartfield. No one but the Woodhouses could have been so generous. And have you heard the news? Mr. Elton is to be married.
What?
Yes, married. And Miss Augusta Hawkins of Bristol, so Mrs. Cole's note said. It only came 5 minutes ago. Well, 7 perhaps, would you say, Jane, dear? I'd just gone down to see Patty about the salting pan for the pork, and at that very moment the note came. Mr. Elton to be married. Well, I have no doubt he will have everybody's wishes for his happiness.
I cannot see why he should be in such a hurry to settle. I'm sure we were always pleased to see him at Hartfield as he was.
This will mean a new neighbour for us all. Eh, Miss Woodhouse? Oh, my mother is so pleased. She says she cannot bear to see the poor old vicarage without a mistress. This is great news indeed. You are silent, Miss Fairfax, but I do hope you mean to show an interest in this news.
When I have seen Mr. Elton for myself, I've no doubt I shall be interested. But I find it requires that with me.
Miss Augusta Hawkins of Bristol, so it is said. I had thought it would be a young lady from hereabouts, but then I'm not particularly quick at these sort of discoveries. Oh, Miss Woodhouse lets me chatter on so good-humouredly. She knows I wouldn't offend for anything in the world. And how is little Miss Smith? Quite recovered now, it seems. Well, Jane, dear, I think we'd better be running along. Good morning, Miss Woodhouse. Good morning, Miss Woodhouse. Quite right. Oh, Mr. Knightley's coming too. How very kind.
She's in the morning room. Thank you.
Miss Woodhouse, what do you think has happened? Oh, dear, such a thing.
Oh, dear, poor Harriet. Do sit down and compose yourself.
Oh, thank you, Miss Woodhouse. I left Mrs. Goddard, you see, not half an hour ago to come here, and I had not gone further than the High Street when it came on to rain.
Yes?
So I thought I would take shelter for a moment in Ford's till the shower passed. So there I waited without thinking, a full 10 minutes, I dare say, when who should come in but... Oh, Miss Woodhouse, I cannot say it. I still feel so strange.
Who was it, Harriet? Who came in?
It was Robert Martin and his sister. Oh, Miss Woodhouse, I thought for a moment I should have fainted. I did not know what to do. I could see them talking together, and then presently she came forward and spoke, but Miss Woodhouse, she did not speak as she used. I could see she was altered. Oh, I felt so dreadful. And then he came up to me, slowly, as if he did not know quite what to do. Oh, goodness, I thought I should have dropped down. And he spoke, and I answered, I do not know what. And then I took a little courage and said it did not rain any longer and that I must go.
And what happened then?
Oh, I came here as fast as I could. I ran all the way. Miss Woodhouse, what should I have done? What should I have said? Oh, I've never felt so wretched in all my life.
But why, Harriet? You have no reason in the world to feel awkward.
Miss Woodhouse, you think not?
Of course not. None in the world.
Dear Miss Woodhouse, do please speak to me and make me comfortable again.
Oh, dear, poor Harriet. I only wish I could. But I'm afraid I have something to tell you that will not please you.
Me, Miss Woodhouse?
Something that will hurt you and may distress me greatly in the telling. Harriet, Mr. Elton is to be married to some person he met while staying in Bath, so I understand. Beyond that, I'm afraid I know very little.
A lady of noble birth, I suppose.
I feel it doubly unkind that this blow should come so soon. I think it cruel of him, really cruel. Oh, poor Harriet.
Oh, please take no notice of my foolishness.
I suffer for you, truly I do.
Miss Woodhouse, how fortunate you are not to be as weak as I am.
Come now, Harriet, the pain will soon pass. And now you must be getting back to Mrs. Goddard. She will be wondering where you are.
Yes, Miss Woodhouse. Thank you, Miss Woodhouse.
And remember, Harriet, you have nothing in the world to reproach yourself with. I am sure you may hold up your head in any company.
Yes, Miss Woodhouse.
Emma, my dear.
Mr. Weston, I did not know you were
Come in here a moment, my dear. I have a little surprise for you.
For me, Mr.
Something I think should please you, eh? A visitor, look. My son, Frank.
Mr. Churchill.
How do you do, Miss Woodhouse?
I told you he'd come, didn't I, eh? And a day early, too.
Draw nearer the fire, sir. You must be cold out there. Emma, dear, find Mr.
So sorry.
Oh, please, allow me.
Thank you.
I'm not surprised that you'd all begun to doubt my very existence, but I decided it was high time that I paid my true home a visit, especially now it has been made such a happy one.
His stepmother's quite taken with the lad, I must say. Quite taken with him, she is.
I must confess, I was not expecting to find a more than tolerably well-looking person of a certain age. I had no notion I was to find a pretty young woman.
Oh, hark at that, eh, you sly young rogue.
Oh, you cannot see too many perfections in Mrs. Weston for my liking, Mr. Churchill.
Thank you, my dear. Well, now, I have some business at the Crown about a load of hay, so I must be getting along. No, don't you come, Frank, my boy, don't you come. If Miss Woodhouse will be kind enough to tolerate your presence here a little while longer.
Most certainly I would, Mr. Weston.
Thank you. And nevertheless, I think I had better accompany my father on this occasion. I have a call to make.
A call?
And who in the world do you know in Highbury, for goodness sake?
Miss Baines or Bates, though I cannot claim to know the lady personally.
Miss Bates.
Oh, so you know her then?
Indeed we do,
Everybody
eh?
in Highbury knows Miss Bates and her mother. They're very old friends of ours.
But how in the world did she come to be an acquaintance of yours, boy?
Oh, she is not, sir. I haven't yet that pleasure. But I recently met, briefly, a kinswoman of hers, a Miss Fairfax, and I promised that I would call upon her aunt with news of her.
Jane Fairfax, her niece.
Fine girl, very fine
She's
girl.
staying with her aunt now.
Miss Fairfax is here, in Highbury. Oh, excellent. Well, then my call upon her aunt will be that much the pleasanter. So, if you will excuse me.
Strange, I was only speaking to Miss Fairfax yesterday. She did not mention the acquaintance.
Then you may be sure she has forgot it already. If that is so, well, never mind. My visit need be no more than brief.
But if you are calling on Miss Bates, let my servant go with you and direct you.
Oh, please, sir, let nobody be put to such trouble. My father can direct me.
But he is only going to the Crown, and Miss Bates lives several houses further down, quite on the opposite side. It's a very muddy walk unless you keep to the footpaths. James can tell you where it is best to cross the street.
My good friend, it's very kind of you, but Frank knows a puddle of water when he sees one, don't you, eh, son?
I trust so, sir, I trust so. Though I am extremely grateful for the offer, of course. Well, goodbye, Miss Woodhouse. I sincerely hope we may have many more opportunities of meeting while I am here.
I hope so, Mr. Churchill.
Emma, my dear child, you're not going out, I trust.
Yes, Papa, I wish to go down to Ford's for a reel of pink thread.
But one of the girls would go for you if you asked them.
It is a question of matching the colour with some exactness, Papa. Besides, I find the exercise beneficial to my health.
But not in this sharp, unpleasant wind, surely, my dear. Oh, dear, oh, dear.
Miss Woodhouse.
Good morning.
And what brings you out so early, pray?
Oh, a small domestic errand. And you?
Oh, one cannot come to Highbury without entering Ford's, or so my father tells me. All the finest people of the neighbourhood congregate here daily, I'm told. And our meeting you like this proves the point. So I must buy something at Ford's to establish my position as a citizen. Well, now, what shall it be? A pair of gloves.
I admire your patriotism, Mr. Churchill. I'm sure you were well respected before as Mr. Weston's son, but lay out half a guinea for a pair of Mr. Ford's gloves, and you will be beloved by all in your own right.
Miss Woodhouse, it shall be done.
Emma, I'm leaving him in your charge.
Oh, but Mrs. Weston.
I have some calls to make. Meet me later at Miss Bates. Goodbye, Emma.
Goodbye, Mrs. Weston. This way, Mr. Churchill. Mr. Perkins?
Good morning, Miss Woodhouse. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Perkins, I wish to see a pair of gloves, please, for morning use.
Yes, sir, certainly, sir. In kid or York tan?
Let me see both. I have a small hand, I'm afraid.
Oh, yes, yes, that will be a narrow fitting, I fancy, sir. If you'll pardon me just one moment, I shall have to go to the stock room.
You paid your duty call, I trust,
My duty call?
upon Miss Bates the other day.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course. I was about to mention it. Miss Woodhouse, oh, Miss Woodhouse, you might, as a friend, have prepared me.
For Miss Bates.
Oh, really, Mr. Churchill? She is a worthy and excellent woman. I will not hear a word to her detriment.
Then you shall not from me, I assure you.
And Miss Fairfax, you saw her also?
I did. And to be honest, Miss Woodhouse, I was somewhat dismayed to see such a marked loss of looks. No, perhaps I should not say that.
She is generally accounted extremely handsome. She is extremely handsome, in my opinion.
Yes, she has a fine face, very fine. Yet such a pallid complexion, has she not? And coupled with such reserve of manner,
She is reserved, certainly. That is my own opinion. But to be fair, she has her reasons, I fancy. You know her circumstances, I expect?
You mean her lack of fortune and the fact that she's obliged to seek employment as a governess?
Yes, it must be an extremely unpleasant prospect for her. I am afraid if I were in her position, I would be far less agreeable than she.
You have made me ashamed of my want of sympathy, Miss Woodhouse. Thank you. I shall endeavour to mend my ways towards the lady in future.
No, Mr. Churchill, I meant to imply no criticism of you. But she is reserved, certainly. It is my own opinion. I have often used the word in describing her myself.
But where I am merely critical, you are understanding.
I must confess to a slight wickedness in my objection to hearing her so idolized and praised upon all sides. You know, Mr. Churchill, she only has to touch the piano for the whole company to go into raptures.
I have myself heard report of her playing, I must confess.
Besides, there is the question of her coldness of manner.
Yes, it is a most unattractive quality, to be sure. It is very difficult to feel an intimacy towards a cold person, would you not say?
Certainly there has never been intimacy between Miss Fairfax and I. Oh, I have no reason to think ill of her, not in the least bit. But such reserve of manner, and such a fear of giving a distinct opinion or of making a direct statement, almost leads one to the suspicion that she must have something to conceal.
I declare I have no notion in the world from whom it could have come. No notion in the world. We were just sitting down to dinner, were we not, Jane dear, when there came a knock at the door. Oh, I said, who can that be? Cannot be Miss Woodhouse, because I know they have company. And there he stood, the van man, on the doorstep. Miss Fairfax, he said, I have a special delivery for a Miss Fairfax. That is what he said, is it not, Jane dear?
Yes, sir. It certainly is a fine instrument. Very fine indeed, is it not, Emma?
Remarkably fine.
And you really have no notion at all from whom it may have come?
Oh, well, we have our own opinions on the matter, have we not, Jane dear?
Have we?
Oh, her guardian, Colonel Campbell, is a very wealthy man of most liberal disposition, so I feel sure we haven't far to seek.
Oh, yes, he must be the benefactor, of course. My goodness, what a generous present.
Yes, is it not? But then he thinks most highly of Jane's playing, as of course we all do. Jane, dear, there is no need to look at me so.
Well, Miss Woodhouse, do you agree? Do you think Colonel Campbell the most likely donor?
Oh, really, Mr. Churchill, I cannot form an opinion. I know nothing whatever of the gentleman.
I see by the expression of your face that you rather suspect another source.
I must confess that Colonel Campbell's was not the first name that sprang to my mind. What do you say to Mrs. Dixon?
Mrs. Dixon? You mean the lady whose children she is to teach? Mrs. Dixon?
Oh, yes,
Oh, yes. Yes, of course. The mystery, the surprise is more like a young woman's scheme than that of the elderly Colonel Campbell.
Then you must include Mr. Dixon as a possible benefactor.
Mr. Dixon? Ah, I see that your comprehension is one stride ahead of even my own.
No, no, Mr. Churchill, forget that I spoke.
Oh, yes, yes, of course, Miss Woodhouse, you have it. Dixon is the fellow, an offering of love.
Oh, my dear.
Mr. Churchill, if you repeat one word of what I have said, I shall be very angry. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Weston. Were you speaking to me?
We were just discussing what we are to wear at Mrs. Cole's party next week, and we thought before deciding we ought to know your choice.
I was not aware until this moment that Mrs. Cole was entertaining.
You and Mr. Woodhouse have not been invited.
Oh, good gracious.
To speak to Mrs. Cole.
Very strange. Such a nice and assuming sort of person, too. How very strange.
I
Mrs.
think
Cole.
not, Miss Bates. As we have not yet had the pleasure of Mr. and Mrs. Cole's company at Hartfield, she is quite right in not including us.
Oh, but everybody is going. Dr. and Mrs. Perry and Harriet Smith.
Harriet, oh, good, I am so glad. How very kind of Mrs.
Yes,
Cole.
and Mr. and Mrs. Weston, of course, and Mr. Churchill, I hope.
Oh, indeed, ma'am.
Oh, yes, is to be dancing.
You have accepted.
Why should I not have done? I was hoping particularly that I might have the pleasure of dancing with you, Miss Woodhouse.
Dear Mr. Knightley has offered us his carriage, Jane and me, to save hiring, you know, so
Mr.
kind of
Knightley
him.
is going to Mr. and Mrs. Cole's. Are you sure?
Oh, yes, yes, he made a special point of saying he would come round this way and call for us at 5:30. That is right, is it not, Jane, dear?
I think that is what I said, Aunt, yes.
Oh. Thank you, Williams. Oh, how very kind.
What is it, Father?
Mrs. Cole has invited us to dinner on Thursday.
Oh, but I thought...
She apologizes for the short notice, but they wanted to ensure the arrival of a new folding screen to protect me from any draught of air.
Oh, how very thoughtful of them.
Yes, it's very kind, very civil of Mrs. Cole. Oh, dear, but I'm not fond of dinner visiting. Late nights don't suit either of us.
But we need not stay late, Father.
No, I really think I must refuse. However, as they are very anxious to have your company, I don't wish to prevent it. Provided the weather be what it ought, neither too damp, nor cold, nor windy.
Thank you, Father.
Ah, if poor Miss Taylor hadn't married, she would have stayed at home with me.
Oh, but Papa, you need not dine alone. Mrs. Goddard will come and keep you company, I am sure.
Oh, thank you, my dear. Now, that would be most agreeable. Yes, you will make my excuses as civilly as possible. And have a word with James. Tell him to wait for the carriage. He will be soon tired with all that noise.
Father, I cannot leave early. It would break up the party.
No great harm if it does. The sooner every party breaks up, the better, in my opinion.
Is everything to your liking, Mrs. Weston?
Oh, most certainly, Mrs.
Oh,
Cole.
I'm so glad. Jones, would you remove the table? Miss Bates?
Yes. Oh, delicious.
Oh, I'm so glad. I had it sent down, especially for you, because I know how much you like it. Oh, la, Miss Woodhouse, please do not sit there. I'm sure you cannot be comfortable.
I am quite comfortable, thank you, Mrs. Cole.
But are you not too far from the fire?
Not in the least, thank you.
These fires do not always throw out a great heat. I'm sure I do not know why. I asked Mr. Cole specially to see that the logs were quite dry. I cannot bear a fire that does not blaze, can you? Oh, here are the gentlemen, at last. Oh, join us, sir. Please come along, do. We are all mightily glad to see you again. Are we not, ladies?
There, that is he. That is Mr. Frank Churchill.
Has almost the look of Mr. Elton as he stands there. But do you not think so, Miss Woodhouse?
No, I do not, Harriet.
Perhaps you're right.
Mr. Knightley and my father are still busily settling the affairs of the parish over their port, so I thought I would seek more congenial company. May I join you?
Of course. This is Miss Harriet Smith, Mr. Churchill.
Oh, how do you do?
Please take my chest.
No,
Oh,
please.
yes, let her, Mr. Churchill. Harriet prefers to sit nearer the fire, do you not, Harriet?
Oh, yes, Miss Woodhouse.
Well, Mr. Churchill, what do you think of her? Is she not pretty?
Oh, exceedingly pretty, and has a rather disarming naivety of manner, I would say.
She's the sweetest girl imaginable.
Oh, dear. I've been here a week tomorrow, nearly half my time already. I've never known the days fly by so fast.
Really, Mr. Churchill? And yet I hear you wasted one of them by going all the way back to London merely to have your hair cut. Is that right?
Oh, not wasted, I think, Miss Woodhouse. I can have no pleasure in meeting my friends unless I can feel myself fit to be seen. But, talking of hair, have you noticed Miss Fairfax? The style she has adopted this evening is surely the oddest thing that I have ever seen.
Mr. Churchill, you are too unkind.
Oh, no, but have you ever in your life seen anything so outre?
She has a very fine face. No doubt she feels she has the features to carry off such a style.
Perhaps it is all connected with the mysterious gift of the piano. What do you say to that as a suggestion, eh?
Whatever do you mean, Mr. Churchill?
Well, possibly a certain gentleman whose name I think we can both guess admires it that way, and it is done as a secret tribute to him.
Now, Mr. Churchill, I thought we both agreed that we would speak no further on that subject, did we not?
Did we? I don't recall having done so.
Now, that really is going too far, Mr. Churchill. As a fellow member of her sex, I feel I must come to her defence.
I shall go across and quite casually compliment her on it. Watch, see whether she changes colour.
Mr. Churchill, you really are too unkind.
May I sit here with you a moment?
Of course, Mrs. Weston.
Emma dear, I have been longing to talk to you. I must confess I've been having thoughts and making plans in my mind quite worthy of yourself. Do you know how Miss Bates and her niece came here tonight?
Yes, Mr. Knightley brought them in his carriage.
And does that not strike you as significant?
Not in the least. Why should it?
But Mr. Knightley, who always walks everywhere, never orders out his carriage upon such an occasion. And Miss Fairfax, so well known to be susceptible to the cold. Can you not see more to it than that? Oh, Emma, you are generally so sharp in perceiving such things.
Mr. Knightley and Jane Fairfax. Oh, no, it cannot be.
Why not?
No, you are mistaken, I am sure. Mr. Knightley would do her any good deed he could because he is that kind of man, but not... Oh, no.
Perhaps the greatest good he could do her would be to marry her and give her such a fine, respectable home.
Well, it would be excellent for her, I am sure, but it would be a disastrous connection for him, poor man. Can you not imagine having Miss Bates haunting Donwell every day, perpetually thanking him for his generosity in marrying her darling Jane? Oh, so very kind and obliging, dear Mr.
Emma, you cruel girl. I should not.
Oh, no. Mr. Knightley has no need to marry. He has all the friends a man could wish for and all the companionship. Besides, it would not be fair.
Not fair? To whom?
To little Henry, his nephew. He is to inherit Donwell. It is all perfectly understood. Oh, no, it is quite unthinkable. And Jane Fairfax, of all women.
Oh, Emma, really?
Now, Miss Fairfax, we have all heard such great things of your playing and singing. May I ask that you will entertain us?
Please, Mrs. Cole, if I might be forgiven this evening, I have a slight cold.
But Miss Fairfax, that is the chief reason for our all meeting together like this.
I'm extremely sorry, Mrs. Cole.
I think she wants but a little persuasion, Mrs. Cole. Come, Miss Fairfax. You cannot disappoint us all like this.
Oh, Miss Fairfax, please.
Yes, there you are. You see, you cannot refuse.
Very well. I must.
Allow me to turn over for you.
Poor girl, she should not be forced in this manner.
Ah, here is that charming song that used to delight the company so much at Weymouth. How about that, eh?
As you wish.
Now, everybody, will you please be quiet? Miss Fairfax is to sing to us.
Especially now that she can practice.
Miss Bates.
Oft in the stilly night a slumber's chain has bound me. Fond memory brings the light of other days around me. The smiles, the tears of boyhood years, the words of love then spoken. The eyes that shone now dim on the tear. I'm so sorry. I have a hoarseness in my throat.
Oh, come, try it again. It's quite simple.
No, please, I can't.
Well, let me sing it with you.
Please forgive me, please.
But, Miss Fairfax, it's quite...
Mr. Churchill. Let the poor girl stop if she wants to.
Well, perhaps the young people would care for a little dancing. Yes, now, would you mind? moving the furniture. Oh, Mrs. Weston, I wonder if you'd be so kind as to play for us.
Yes, of
Oh,
course,
thank you
Mrs.
so much. Now, will somebody please take the floor? Who will give us a lead? Ah,
Miss
Yes,
Woodhouse?
thank you. Please forgive me.
oh, Miss Woodhouse, are you not dancing?
Miss Woodhouse, this is a pleasure that I have long promised myself. May I?
Most certainly you may, Mr. Churchill. Thank you.